It all began as weakness and stiffness in my right hand and muscle twitching in my legs. After several MRIs, lots of blood work, and extensive testing that showed no reasonable explanation for my symptoms, I was given the diagnosis of early stage ALS. Hi, I'm Shelley, and this is my story. I'm a firecracker and a partner in crime to my husband. I'm a daughter, a sister, and a cousin to my family. I'm a friend that never forgets your birthday. I'm an aunt that gives the biggest hugs. I'm a captain of my volleyball team. I'm a manager that's always in your corner at work. I'm a board member on a nonprofit. I'm a person with many titles, but now I have one more. I'm a person with ALS.
Take a look at these photos. Michelle Stellato is spirited and vibrant, enjoys spending time with family and friends. It's hard to believe beneath the exterior, this young woman is in the fight of her life.
There are a lot of misconceptions about ALS. It's been around for over 200 years, but yet your best guess is really how to treat yourself at this point.
While ALS is 100% fatal, there are drugs that are already in stage 3 clinical trials. For patients like Michelle, it is vital to get to those therapies. And that's why she's pushing to pass Act ALS. It would increase funding for research and it would accelerate access to critical therapies for people suffering from rare neuro disorders like ALS, as well as Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and others.
Most ALS victims do not live that long. This overly deliberate regulatory process does not match the urgency of the disease. It's not saving lives, it's killing hope.
Hey everybody, it's Mike here with No More Excuses with another amazing interview for you this evening at this most critical time in ALS when the FDA is currently deciding the fate of our terrible disease for decades to come. You see, right now the FDA is currently deciding on 2 drugs, but one of these drugs, called NurOwn, has proven itself time and time again over the course of an 11-year journey. It is now in the FDA's hands. And it is not hyperbole or an extension of the truth in any way to say that this drug will affect every ALS patient and every ALS patient that is not even diagnosed yet here in the United States for a number of years to come because of its importance and what it has done now to energize the community. It's time to draw the line in the sand. Impressive young individuals like Michelle Stellato, who you're going to hear from in a moment, are finally getting in the fight and not choosing to accept the failures of the past. They are changing things and making things happen. I think you'll find this very fascinating because Michelle is an incredible young woman, 32 years old, diagnosed with this terrible disease. And she is a fighter. She is fighting like crazy to try to get across to people that we must draw that line in the sand. Right now, as you meet my new friend and really incredible advocate for ALS, Shelley Stellato. Here we go.
Hi, Mike. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Shelley lives in New Jersey, and there's a little strategy to this. We'll maybe talk about that later. But I first noticed one of her videos that she had done. She's been interviewed a couple of times by one of the local Fox stations and then by Pix 11, and really has this argument down pat. It's really nice and heartwarming to know that there are patients out there that are really fighting for change in this disease and who are taking charge of their futures. Younger people are being afflicted with this terrible disease more often, of course, we know, and let's hope that we can get some change out of this. So with that now, Shelley, thank you so much again, and tell us just a little bit about yourself, right?
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm 32 years old. I was diagnosed in June of 2020. And really, I was a volleyball player. I played in college. I got married just 3 years ago. You can see the pictures behind me. My husband and I just bought this home. We just moved in March of 2020 and really, ready to open the next chapter of our lives. We're super career driven. We love traveling. We've got a big group of friends. Um, and my symptoms started in my right hand. So I was just kind of feeling weird. Like it was harder to type at work. I have a corporate job. I'm always typing. I work in communications. So just making a lot of typos. And when I was playing volleyball, couldn't serve it over the net. So I just wasn't feeling quite myself. And it was odd. And it was very subtle
Okay.
for several weeks, months, and it wasn't going away.
Tell us a little bit about, if you don't mind. I know it's hard to kind of go over these things and to kind of go back to that moment, but tell us a little bit about your medical journey and your diagnosis, if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like many of us, it starts with MRIs, blood work, trying to rule out things. One of the things that was on the table was ALS, but neurologist told me there's no way it's this. It's just something that old men get. You're not going to have this. Let's just rule it out. And when I was getting all my testing done, it was in the beginning of the pandemic. So a lot of stop go. My doctor's appointments were getting canceled and the shutdown was happening. So I got half an EMG, then the shutdown came, I got the other half, and they were kind of puzzled. And I knew it wasn't going well when they were just like, wait, we're gonna have to call you back. Like I was actually getting avoided
Uh-oh.
by my doctor.
Ooh.
So I knew it wasn't good. And I have a sister who's in pharmaceuticals, and I'm calling her and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what is wrong with me, but I think it's pretty serious and I don't know where to turn. And she knows people in the field, asked around, and hearing of my symptoms, which it was weakness, stiffness, and then I started having the twitches.
Right.
So the fasciculations, and that was what really set me off of like, this is scary.
Yeah.
So
Right.
they took it very seriously, given my age. And about a week later, I got a phone call, and my diagnosis was early stage ALS. So via Zoom call.
Wow. To get that news over Zoom, that must have been absolutely just horrific.
Yeah, it's like
And
it almost makes it not as real. I think
yeah.
like the whole world right now feels like
Hmm.
a video game.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of surreal. But
It is.
I'm very thankful that I found a doctor that was honest with me.
Right. And was able to finally deliver that news, because this is not
Mm,
uncommon, Shelley. Doctors, they don't want to deliver this kind of news. It's very, and I've heard all kinds of cases, people's assistants, delivering the news. It's shocking, some of the things, some of the delays, because they don't, let's be honest, they don't want to deliver this kind of news either. And so, uh, but to do it over Zoom, I can't even imagine. And would you be interested in having NurOwn as soon as possible, especially considering you're still in really good shape? How would you feel about that?
yes. Yes, I would basically do anything. Just like you said, I'm high functioning, which means I'm walking, I'm talking, I can still use my hands. I'm not happy with how my body is working today compared to how it used to, but I
Of
can
course.
live like this. I will
Absolutely.
take this. I am fine with this. What I'm
Absolutely.
terrified of is what could happen in a month, in a year, in 2 years, if I keep letting this happen to my body. So while I would love a cure, something that can stop, slow, and just keep me how I am, preserve me, I would do anything. So yeah, I would love to take NurOwn. I would love to try any treatment. Anything is better than having absolutely no hope, no control, and feel like you're rolling the dice every day you get up.
I can't even believe that, frankly, we're sitting here debating this, because we have these treatments now. It makes no sense to me. And again, for our newer folks out there, I'm going to just recap just briefly, just the very briefest of recaps. So I myself was in a trial called the NurOwn Phase 3 trial. And this, Shelley brings up the perfect point. recently this trial finished, the phase 3 part of the trial, and it was called a failure. Now, I want to be clear. This drug was not a failure. What happened is that ALS is a very complicated disease, as you are well aware. Some people out there may not understand this, but believe it or not, Shelley, the way our trials are graded is with a questionnaire of just a matter of about a dozen questions. For example, how did you cut your own food today? How can you adjust your own sheets? How is your handwriting, right? Now, these are all very subjective questions. And when you have people in a trial like the Brainstorm phase 3 trial that I was in, and when you let a bunch of people in, including some who were very sick, in fact, much more sick than the average ALS trial, you're probably not going to get the home run result that you'd hoped for. However, that does not mean that some people in the trial did not get a phenomenal result.
Early intervention, that's kind of what everyone thinks about in the medical field is catching something early is always key. And something I worked really hard on is getting my diagnosis. I was during COVID. My first symptom, November 2019, I was diagnosed by June 2020. And that's because I was relentless. I was like, something's wrong with me. I want to know what it is. I want to know what it is right now. I want to do whatever I can to fix it. I deserve to have the treatment that's available.
Absolutely.
It exists. I worked really hard to get here. I didn't lie to myself. I didn't ignore it. I wasn't lazy. I went to every doctor in the middle of a pandemic with my face mask on. I went in the MRI machine 8 times. I had 4 EMGs, which everyone that's a patient here knows what that is. But it's a needle into every muscle of your body with electricity, including my tongue. So I worked really hard, and I've done everything as a patient that I can do to say, I need some help. I need something. What do you got for me? And to hear, well, there's nothing really you can do. Just take this drug that probably doesn't work and, drink a lot of water. What the hell? How is that the state of this? And I just feel like early intervention is so important for me to have a chance at life. And I did my part.
People have spent way too much time trying to figure out why and not enough time just trying to shut it down. And we can do that right now. I want to show you guys out there again. I know some of you are new to this. Here is what I'm talking about. This is the NurOwn phase 3, or the NurOwn system in essence. I want to explain this just briefly. Bone marrow is taken out of your hip. It's taken out of the iliac crest, which is kind of that bone that sticks out on your hip on either side. It's taken, put in the lab, and then it's put through, Brainstorm's magic process. They've got little magic elves in there. I don't know what they do. I don't care. They take it and they put it in the lab, and it comes out, and they put it into your spinal cord. For ladies out there who've had children, many or most of you have had an epidural. It's the same thing. I've had now over 15 of these shots, and not just from the NurOwn trial, but previous testing. And let me tell you something. It's not that bad. Okay, it's not pleasant, but to be able to go in and have one epidural every 3 months and be able to stay in the condition that Shelley and I are in right now, I've got to be honest with you. It's a joke that we're even having this debate right now. Okay, it's an absolute shame. When I first became aware of the NurOwn system or the trial before I got in, they did a phase 2 trial. Okay, this is, again, 11 years in the making, 11. And as you can see here from the phase 2 data, this is what was being reported at the time. NurOwn stem cells, their technology, may halt disease progression in patients with ALS. This data was presented and peer-reviewed in the International Symposium in Ireland that they do every year, which is absolutely amazing. And even better than that, as additional proof, there was in phase 2 a group of patients in that trial, faster progression, because it's easier to measure faster progression. It's not, let me be clear about this, it's not that the drug only works in fast progressors, it's easier to measure them. This was the phase 3 trial that is right now being called a failure. I want to be clear. It is not a failure. Think about this. Look at the circle there. 30 94.6% of patients who were a little bit healthier, like you are, and like I am now, people who were in a little better position, in other words. By the way, as we would expect, same thing with cancer, right? You get a stage 1 or stage 2 or stage 3 patient, they're going to do better than somebody with aggressive stage 4. And so look what happened. Their ALS-FRS score, they were progressing at a certain rate, and that change was, and it's right below there, the little green circle. Their improvement was 2.01 points. And let me tell you something, 2 points on the ALS-FRS score equates to a massive difference in life. Now remember, this is 3 injections. What happens when you give somebody 6, 7 injections? Well, you've got somebody like a Matt Bellina, right? And do you know who Matt Bellina is, by the way, Shelley? The Navy pilot who received this? This is a tweet that he put out, and I want everybody to see this. I haven't had a treatment in about 6 months. In February, I got pneumonia. 8 days in the ICU. He thought at first he'd lost his gains. And look what he says. Today, I can still stand. I did 9 miles on the recumbent elliptical, both things I could not do 18 months ago. We have a gentleman here named Phil Green, well-known ALS advocates out there, absolutely credible. This guy lives out in California. He played for the UCLA. Phil Green says, quote, he was in the phase 3 trial, that same one I was. Look what he says. Imagine being in a clinical trial that stopped the progression of your ALS. He kept his own data, by the way, his own FRS data. Now I have to wait a year plus before it may get FDA approval. While I wait, I am losing my ability to walk, speak, and breathe. Now, let me explain to people out there what this feels like. To know that you are dying, and Shelley and I, and thousands of others, every day that we wake up, we're never going to be the same person we were the day before. For these kind of drugs to be called failures is the reason why we are still talking about ALS in the year 2021. ALS is now a choice. We are accepting ALS at a time, frankly, when we rammed everything through for COVID, as you're aware, I'm sure, and as we did everything, going from nothing in January of 2019 or 2020, excuse me, to having an FDA-approved vaccine for COVID in 9 months.
Which is great. And it proves that we can do something if we care enough and if we have enough money. And the reality is ALS affects all kinds of people. Anyone can get it. I don't have genetic form. It's sporadic, which means I just woke up like this one day, and you can too. So the reason why we should solve this now is because we haven't done anything in 145 plus years. We've made no progress. Yet we have made progress. There's brilliant therapies out there, and they're working, and we should fund them, give people access to give us a chance at life, because this could happen to you too. So don't wait for it to hit your family or for it to hit yourself. We need to care now, and we need to fund these. It's that simple. We can do it.
Well said. And you hit on something there that I also want to point out. It's very important. There are people out there right now watching this video from your home state of New Jersey. Many people that you know, I'm sure, being in volleyball and having a lot of friends, you probably know your network is thousands of people, I'm sure. People with ALS are victims of bad luck. It's that simple. And the fact that there are drugs that could now slow down, or in some cases even halt this disease, and we cannot get to them. And the fact that there are people out there walking around right now who don't even know they're going to be in our position in less than 6 or 7 days. This is the drug. This is why we have to approve these kinds of drugs. And by the way, there's another drug right now. It's kind of coming up, and I do want to be fair and give it equal time. The FDA is currently deciding on a drug you may be familiar with, Shelley, called AMX35. And it's, look, here it is. This is a picture of it. Okay. It's basically a repurposed drug that has been around. One of these things has been around. TUDCA, there you see TUDCA. It's torosodialexic acid. Ooh, man, that's a big word. But that drug, actually, the Italians did a study on it a decade ago, and it slowed ALS by a little bit, right? But trust me, guys, if it worked a decade ago, Shelley and I would have been eating that stuff like crazy from day one. It's not enough. And in fact, in the phase 3 trial, this drug called AMX 35 is certainly a viable option. It just finished phase 2 trial. And the FDA is also deciding right now if it's going to approve this drug or make it do a double-blind placebo trial to learn what we already know about it. And look, this drug extends life by 6 months, maybe 5 to 6 months. Okay. The other two drugs for ALS, Radicava and Riluzole. I just had my port removed. I got a big scar here. I was on Radicava. I tried it, but these two drugs, and Riluzole, so 3 drugs that we have, what they do is they prolong death by months at best. What we're talking about with this drug right here, NurOwn, is a milestone leap in hope. It is not a drug that will give you 2 or 3 more months. It is a drug that has kept people alive. I urge every one of you out there to go and watch Eric Stevens' story. We did a documentary on this. I want to thank the Stevens again for their effort and their work. They've been on Ellen 4 times now, and they've tried to tell this story. And Shelley, the media, and congratulations to you on getting your stories. But the problem is, for some reason, they don't want to tell the real story of ALS, which is what you've just heard over the last 15 minutes.
It's really hard to understand, but I think that ALS is unfathomable. The idea that you wake up like this one day and your body is just slowly taken away from you, it sounds like science fiction. It doesn't sound real. So I don't think that people can really understand the gravity. The life expectancy is 3 to 5 years. So you mentioned, a trial could take another 3 years. Do you know what that means? That means how many people are going to die. And it's too sad. Frankly, Mike, I think people are just like, oh, that's horrible. I don't even want to think about that. So we bury it away. And instead of burying it away, that's why I'm speaking out. I'm doing very well in terms of someone that has ALS. So it's not pretty over here, but I'm hanging in there. And people like me, we want a chance to stay this way. So we don't want you to look away, and then we don't want you to feel bad for us. We want you to fight for us and say, this is crazy. If there's a 1 in 3 chance that something that's safe might work for me, that's my decision if I want to take that risk. And guess what? The answer is, yeah, I do.
I'm done. That's it. You just said it. Really. I mean, the interview's over. I mean, I can't say it any better. And I'll tell you what I do see, though. I see a revolution in ALS finally beginning to build. We have spent the last 2 years up on our soapbox, and the patients and in our little group are slowly becoming mainstream, if you will. Their opinions are being heard by more and more people.
Put them back in to protect the motor neuron. Look, at the end of the day, progression stopped.
Younger people like yourself.
I'm Kaya Klingman, and I am the daughter of an incredible man named James Klingman, who is currently dying of ALS, the disease that has a 100% fatality rate.
You said something very important, that this disease, it moves very quickly, 2 to 3 years. Right now is the time with NurOwn that we could draw that line in the sand and really make a difference in this disease.
I think the only thing I would add is that if safety and efficacy are already proven, so we know it's safe and we know it works for some people, what else do we need to know about a disease that's 100% fatal? I just don't get it. And I think we need to just change the guidelines. I don't think it's done on purpose. I don't think everyone around us is evil, but let's just be realistic. Like you said, this doesn't make sense. So let's fix it. Let's just move on and say, well, forget it ever happened. Just fix it now. So we know we can do it. Let's do it again.
I hate to say this, but our lives have almost become like some sort of crazy ego battle, like over a battle between patients who are not happy and leaders of our disease who want to maintain control. And we've got to meet in the middle. I've mentioned this time and time again. The Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, excuse me. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, what they've done has been absolutely incredible for their disease. There's no friction there between patients and the home office. Like they work together, they fight the same battle, and cystic fibrosis has now become 90% treatable in our lifetime. 90%.
Amazing.
I saw this really cool picture of you. What's happening here?
Yes, so my friends forced me into this. I have a really great friend who he has his own production company, and I come from
Right
a
on.
really tight-knit community, and I'm from Rutherford, New Jersey. And when someone happens to someone in this town, everyone's like, "What can we do to help?" So
Right.
a friend of mine's like, "I have a studio. I'd love to help you if you want to do a video." And I'm like, "A video about what?" Like, I don't even know what to do. So I had to take the opportunity because he was so kind with his time and his talents. So my friends and I, we actually kind of have our own little fundraising group, and we decided, let's just
Cool.
raise awareness
Sure.
of ALS. And I just wrote a script. I'm in communications as a job. So I'm usually behind the camera coaching the talent.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, I have to do this. I know how to do this. So I kind of just
Right.
said, "It's your time, girl." And I did it and had great people around me, and it was fun. So I
Good
like
for
doing stuff
you.
like that. Yeah.
Amazing. I think it's great, and I can't wait for everybody to see it. I'm going to attach that in here if it's okay with you. I want people to really see some of your video work. It's amazing. You make a very compelling argument, just as you did tonight. If you had one thing, just really quickly, to say to our congressman, specifically Mr. Pallone, what would you say about HR 8666? Excuse me, HR 8662, and what it would mean to you to have this bill passed when we reintroduce it?
I would say to Congressman Pallone to please rethink his opinion of this bill, to really take a full look at the package here. It's about treatments for people now and research. It's not risky. And like I said earlier, this disease, ALS, could happen to anyone. And I would like you to think of me as if I was a member of your family. And
Oh,
if I was a member of your family, how would you look at that bill? Yes, that's my husband, Kevin. He's smiling really big there. We just got married there in
absolutely. Beautiful
Outer
picture.
Banks. Yes, we were in North Carolina in the Outer Banks. We had a
Oh,
really fun, small, intimate destination wedding. It was the best day. We had a great time. So,
wow.
yeah, Kevin and I got married in July of 2017.
One last word and I'll let you go. And thank you so much for doing this on short notice. And if, uh, I just thank you for being a firecracker and for fighting, because you're fighting for people out there who are unable to fight. And that's really what this is all about, helping others who cannot fight or who have lost their voice. So go right ahead.
Thank you, Mike. I would just end it by saying thank you. Finding this group was the one hopeful thing that's happened since I've been diagnosed. It's just knowing there's people out there that have been fighting. You guys have done a lot of the groundwork. I kind of came in, it was easy. I came in, the path was already there. So I just want to thank you and thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for doing this, and stay in the fight as long as you can. And I'm hoping so hard that we get this drug for you, because you do not deserve to have to deal with this right now. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. Thanks for watching. I don't think there's really much left to say. Clearly, Shelley gets this battle. She absolutely understands everything and why it's so crucial right now. And that just raising awareness and fundraising is not enough. We need real action. We need access. As I mentioned briefly in the interview, went over a few critical items for those of you who may be new to ALS or sadly some of you who may not even be diagnosed yet and will find this video at a later date. We're at the pivotal moment in our disease, this terrible disease, because we're about to find out if the FDA is going to allow NurOwn, a drug which is now in its 11th year of development for ALS, to pass or fail. This trial, phase 3 trial, was very complicated, very complex, and ALS is so heterogeneous, meaning it's so different in every person, that simply using a questionnaire to judge the results of a trial is no longer adequate for this kind of disease. In the interview, you saw me put up a few slides, and I'm going to briefly recap, very briefly. Please stay with me as I do this, so that you know why it's so critical for us to have this drug. First of all, the results of the trial were clear. You can see here, 34.6 response rate. The average change in ALSFRS was minus 1.77 on NurOwn and minus 3.78 on placebo, a 2.01 point improvement favoring NurOwn. Some people will say yes, but that group was too small. It wasn't powered enough to prove efficacy. To those people, I say, you're wrong. It's not only was it not too small, it's further proof of what we've already known, going all the way back to phase 2 results, which showed early promise. In fact, this incredible statement that NurOwn stem cells may halt disease progression in patients with ALS, which absolutely now, as we know, has essentially turned out to be proven.
So basically, according to the ALS FRS, a year ago I was at 34. Today I'm at a solid 36.
Just after he was diagnosed, Eric was lucky enough to participate in the NurOwn phase 3 trial. During the lead-in period, Eric was progressing rapidly. His left hand was getting weaker, his fasciculations were spreading, his speech was slurring, and his legs were giving out. But then, from February to September 2020, Eric's progression of ALS seemed to significantly slow down. His left hand wasn't getting worse, his speech wasn't getting worse, and his leg strength wasn't getting worse. When Eric started the trial, he was still functioning at a high level. We know that NurOwn performed better in the patients who were more functional. We are certain that his progression significantly slowed down while he was enrolled in this NurOwn trial.
We've seen cases where people got better very quickly, but we don't know enough to say that they actually stayed better. And so promising is really the best we can say at this point.
Promising is not the best we can say at this point. What we can say at this point is that we can halt ALS progression in some and slow it down drastically in others. That rate could be as much as 35% or even more. So you had a very fair trial, a trial with a lot of sick people in it, and it did not cause the trial to fail. What it did was it showed us exactly who this drug works better for, but not exclusively in. In fact, remarkably, the results from this trial, the biomarker response was seen in all cohorts in this trial. Trophic factors went up. Factors that indicate disease went down, and markers of degeneration also got better in all cohorts. Those are very strong data. My own view is that this should be available to all patients. Now, the FDA may want to hear about post-marketing commitments, but that's done normally as part of good pharmaceutical behavior. So I feel strongly that this should not be an application for a selected subset of patients. Ladies and gentlemen, NurOwn works. NurOwn must be approved for all ALS patients right now. The idea, even the mere idea of another 3-year-long trial just to prove what was already proven in phase 2 and phase 3 and with real-world experience would be so inhumane and so cruel. We can't even consider doing that to people with ALS who would be allowed to die waiting. Again, the FDA can and must do exactly this. Just like it did for one other ALS drug, it demanded a phase 4 post-marketing commitment, just like the doctor said, that would monitor the efficacy of NurOwn after it is approved immediately. What do we have to lose except thousands, tens of thousands of lives if this is not acted upon right now? This drug is safe. It's passed every safety benchmark. It's not just generally safe. It's safe, period. Now look, as I mentioned, the FDA is currently deciding between 2 drugs right now for ALS. It could do both, and I urge the FDA to do that. But what we don't need is we don't need another drug that only extends life by 5 or 6 months. We've already got that. What we need is a drug that goes all the way. It will give each newly diagnosed ALS patient a chance at the holy grail of ALS to do exactly what you saw right here. For patients to stop their ALS progression. Okay? Guys, I don't really know any other way to say this, but one thing I can tell you is that we are accepting ALS right now. I want to say thanks again, and please, right now, join this fight. It is critical that you get a letter to the following people. I'm going to put their addresses up now. Please be nice, please be kind, but send pictures of yourself and show what you're living with. Show these people what ALS did to your life, and furthermore, what it could do to them tomorrow. There are people walking around right now that don't even know that they have ALS yet. I didn't, and you didn't, the day before we were diagnosed. NurOwn has the ability to change the hope in our disease for the next decade. It is not a failure. What is a failure is the fact that you are not being told the absolute truth about NurOwn. We must demand change. With your help, we will. Or we can continue to accept ALS the way it is, a failure. Thank you so much for watching. And just know that I'm fighting for each of you. And I know that each of you are fighting for me. There's no sides in ALS. There shouldn't be. There should not be sides in ALS. This should not be a battle of ego or a battle of will. It should be obvious what we need to do right now. I urge you to support ALS groups that understand this and fight for you, like I Am ALS and others. Thanks again for watching tonight, and I hope that we get some good news soon. And we don't have to come back here and discuss what a tragedy this decision was if not approved. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.